neat displays for some of your models. Anything that I'm doing today, it could be tank armor, it could be Godzilla stuff, it could be, you know, mech, sci-fi, whatever. So I'm showing you guys what I like to use now. I'm not being endorsed or paid by Smooth On. They gave me a catalog, but it was a free catalog anyway, so I'm not being paid by Jersey Fest. I'm not being paid by Smooth On. This is just stuff that I use anyway. So you can also substitute this stuff for just regular air dry clay that's at like Michael's and stuff. I'll tell you why I like this better than that, but the techniques would be sound for that anyway. So what I'm using today is this stuff called Freeform Air by Smooth On, and it's a 2-part lightweight epoxy coating. Essentially 2 gallons of material is about 75 bucks. And if you're doing relatively small size, big size stuff, I've had this bucket for like 2 years. So the reason I like it is that in thinner sections, it's much stronger, much more stable, cracks less, doesn't shrink than like the air dry clay or the plaster or any of the other stuff that's kind of more the traditional diorama building materials. For today, what I'm doing is trying to get a little 170, this is a 172nd scale bow pod. I'm just trying to give them kind of a cool, you know, cityscape is what I'm going for today. Again, I'm probably going to try to fit 5 hours of work in like an hour, so we'll see how this goes. Number one cost saving tip is if you're making a big diorama, get the cheapest junk underneath possible. So I go get the purple foam. They have it in different thicknesses at Home Depot. I kind of prepped this thing, and this is what this nasty, horrible looking drywall knife is for. I like to do these things where, like, for me when I was a kid, I would look at the Hobby Japan stuff, the magazines and stuff, and all the dioramas, which looked like they just took a little slice out of some kind of adventure. For this Hobby Japan stuff, it was always like the mech stuff or the Machine Krieger stuff, the Macross stuff. So I like to do this and give it like a little bit of randomness. Whereas I see a lot of dioramas are kind of rigid, they're like in a box. I like to imagine that I just plucked a scene out of, you know, a magazine or a show. I mean, for a lot of the nostalgia for all these models for me is always putting myself in that genre. So anyway, I cut this stuff out, and what I'm doing partially too by roughing up the board is it gives this material something to bite into. So you can see I just kind of, you know, have done some of this sculpting. I'm keeping this pretty flat because I'm trying to do kind of a cityscape thing. But if you wanted to do something that was much more aggressive, you could really dig into this, cut into it, get some, you know, nasty divots that you're going to do. Whatever your imagination, it kind of sky's the limit on that. So put this forward to the side for now. Grab this. So this is just a 2-part epoxy. It works really nice and well with water. The water is going to add or ease the adhesion of the epoxy to the foam. So I got some wet paper towels. I'm just going to start trying to get, like I said, I'm not spraying anything on you guys today. This is a nice low odor demonstration. I'm just going to get ready to get some water on this stuff. I just have to estimate kind of what my material is going to be.
Does the water, as far as the activation process?
It just helps with adhesion. This water will interact, it activates this stuff essentially.
Especially like Gorilla Glue.
What's that?
Yeah, but like the Gorilla Glue and stuff has like a little bit of...
No, this is going to stick directly to the foam without anything other than water.
Oh.
Yeah, the water makes this stuff a little bit more workable. I don't know that you thin it in the way that you would thin the paint, but it helps it adhere, and it helps it, so you can smooth it with water. And later on, I'm going to be using a little bit of this Vaseline that's to prevent things from adhering to it. So with the water, you're getting it. You can smooth it out. You can smooth it out with the Vaseline too, but you don't want to put the Vaseline on anything that you'd want to have it adhere to. You know, all this started too for me, like when I was a kid, I'd get all these little Macross models, right? had paper out, and I'd go to the comic book store with my dad, and I'd get these little Macross, these little Mac models. And my dad's a very rigid guy, right? So he would drink Schaefer beer, right? One a day. Like, I don't want to make my dad out to be like an alcoholic or something. Like, he was a real regimented guy. One beer a day. And I knew every 24 days or so I was getting one of those cardboard trays that the 24 cans of beer would come in, right? So I was like, okay. You know, especially during the summer, right? You know, I had time on my hands to do some stuff. And I knew, getting one of those cardboard trays, man. We're coming. And I go get sand, I get all sorts of stuff, and I build the models, and I fill these trays with sand. And whatever junk I could find. Of course, I got some pretty neat stuff too. It was the 80s, so children were not like, they were free roaming children. And I go around the neighborhood, and I go around the neighborhood after 4th of July and find all the unexploded fireworks. Why nobody was stopping me, I have no idea. And I would, you know, light off the fireworks and burn the sand, and I'd find some gasoline from, you know, one of my grandfather's motorcycles, or, you know, that dripped on the thing. I'd make all summer especially, I'd make all these dioramas with blow up the models with the, you know, the unexploded firecracker. I mean, just real dangerous stuff. I mean, I have this theory, I don't know if you guys have noticed too, that like, have you guys watched Stranger Things? Right? And I guess, I haven't seen the new It movie because I've been prepping. Yeah, but that takes place in the 80s, right? Yeah. So I have this theory that like, Stranger Things, all these movies with kids running around getting into adventures, they have to be in the 80s. Right? You can't have it in the 90s where it's like, you know, dial up your neighbor, come in for play date. You know, how do you get into adventures when you have organized picnics? Yeah, so all this diorama stuff between the magazines and just doing all this stuff, you know, it worked and got my models and blew them up. It was awesome. All this stuff is, so you can see I'm trying to just get 2 even balls of this stuff going.
It's like all the age plan.
Yeah, so this stuff, I mean, really, actually, for how much, I mean, you can see how much material I've already used out of this. Each bucket has approximately the same one. Everybody saw the sand crawler out there in the display room. I made that base with this, and that's huge. I made a Godzilla display that's this big. I made a bunch of other ones, so you know, you get in your head like, yeah, I need to spend $75 on putty, but compared to like an Aves, you get way more. And this stuff works. Like, has anybody used that like air dry clay that's at, I know you do, yeah. Like at Michael's and stuff? Like, look at how I'm doing this. You can never do that with that air dry clay. It's just too hard. You can add water to it. This stuff is way more workable. And like I said, in my opinion, you know, your time is worth money. If you could do something faster and you only spend because, I mean, yeah, I've used that clay, and I usually try to wait till like Sunday, and you get that 40% off coupon from Michael's that comes on your cell phone. You know, so if you want to go there every Sunday and buy a little block of it for $12, you know, you maybe get it down to like 8 or 9 with the discount. But then you got to go to Michael's every Sunday, and somebody's trying to buy their scrapbooking stuff in front of you. You know. All right. I'm just saying, I don't want to wait in line, you know?
Yeah.
What's that? I don't think you need to stay the whole time. Like, if you just point it at that, I think we'll be fine. Yeah.
Take care, thank you.
Just point it in that direction. You guys can see me pretty good, right? Without okay. Yeah, I'll just try to keep it in that. If I shift, you guys just let me know, and I'll kind of point it in the right direction again. So yeah, I did talk to the guy at Smooth On across the thing. I mean, you don't need anything special to order from Smooth On. You don't, you know, need to have a company or anything. So if you guys decide you want to try this stuff, they have a sample thing over there. I don't know if they're selling it. You could ask for a sample. I don't know. I told them that I was doing a demo, so they might expect a few people if you guys are interested in it over there to talk about it. But again, you know, for me, 75 $80, whatever that is, delivered. I've had it for 2 years and I've done a bunch of stuff.
I wish they'd actually sell stuff that was over there.
Do they?
They were coming to Jersey Fest for years, but they just display it.
It's just display, okay.
Really
Well,
cool.
that's a space sculptor might have, because they sell a lot of it.
Yeah, my table's right next to theirs, so I'm gonna see if they have it.
Okay, so this is done. I mean, you guys can see kind of how easily this stuff is workable, right? This is not that hard clay that you have to work with. What you're looking for is that nice uniform gray color, okay? And that's going to mean that it's all together, it's all activated. You have a couple hours to play with this stuff, I think, but you really want to get it down within the first 15 or 20 minutes.
But does it have about the same dry kind of like an eggs or something?
Well, it'll be totally good to go in. I mean, I wouldn't paint it in less than 24 hours, but by tonight, this thing will be pretty much rock hard, and by tomorrow, it'll be fairly indestructible. So,
It looks fairly lightweight.
yeah, I mean, look, again, I mean, for anybody who's worked with that kind of clay, you know, the cheap, what is it? What's the name of that? Do you remember what the name of it is? The air dry clay that you can get that you just sculpt like this.
Oh, gosh,
Yeah, I've done a few dioramas out of that, and I would be like on this little block right here. Like I wouldn't be anywhere near spreading it this fast. It would just take forever. And then when we get into the next step, which is going to be the texture stamping stuff, it doesn't take the texture stamping as well either. No, the clay doesn't take this. This stuff takes texture stamping wonderful. This stuff does. The clay is just a little bit. Yeah, it's not this lightweight. Like your diorama would be heavy, which is maybe not. I mean, that's not a horrible thing, right? As far as your workability time, like how you're able to spread it, texture stamp it. This stuff is just superior. And again, because you're using the foam to block out most of it. Like if I wanted a big rock or something here, I would take a block of that foam, you know, make it about that big, put it there, and then coat it, right? So you're saving the expensive material as much as possible. And even, I mean, it's not going to make too much of a difference. If you're getting the foam in it, what I'm really going for is kind of a beat up, like this ship is kind of landed and it's knocked through a building. We're going to get to that with the precision board stuff in a minute, which is essentially, the precision board stuff is, if that guy was showing you balsa foam yesterday, balsa foam is really the predecessor to what I have here, which is the precision board.
But he had the sign foam, which is the same stuff.
What's that?
He had a sample of the sign foam.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, that's essentially the same thing. What else did he do, like, as far as, like, I came in, I saw him carving in, like, what would essentially be divots and, like, not panel lines, like...
He was doing, like, panel stuff, like bricks.
Brick panels, yeah.
Whose demo was that?
What's that?
Dave Rock.
And he was just doing, like, impressions on the balsa foam, which is good for that. You know, the sign foam, that's good for the precision board. So many different things, but it's the...
Did you want to buy some precision board, right?
What's that?
Did you wind up buying yourself some?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got the whole thing. You know, like you said, you buy a huge sheet for $100, but it lasts you forever.
Yeah, again, that's one of those things that's kind of, you know, sometimes you spend $200 or $300, but you got a lifetime supply, you know?
Do you have to elevate that after, you know, put something in the center of it so it doesn't stick to anything?
Yeah, I mean, usually under ideal conditions, I would probably have waxed, like I have some signboard that would wax with part all paste, so it pops right off, yeah.
Like a fusion wax.
Yeah. I think this will be okay. I mean, if this is for the demo, if something pops off, I'll fix it when I get home or something, you know. So again, we're looking at here, you guys are looking at the back. This is the front of my diorama. I'm going to have a building back here with that precision board in a few minutes.
Red alert.
Oh, your job for the rest of the demo. When it turns off, you follow up button. Okay. So my plan is right around here, you know, again, this is some of the parts where like, yeah, I know that this is not going to be to scale, meaning like there's a building back here and how much lawn would there be, and you know, this is from an anime, so, but I'm also trying to fit a bunch of detail kind of in a fanciful way, you know, into a small diorama. I mean, this is still relatively shelf size. This might hang over a shelf, but without giving it a flat back, you could still fit this on like a normal size shelf and have your display and not, you know, break.
It's actually a good thing to think about first, is like, where you're gonna put it when you're done.
Yeah.
Because I think that's,
Yeah, I made a massive Godzilla display out of essentially the techniques that I'm using right now. And then I was like, oh my God, I need a sheet of 4x8 plywood to display this thing on. So I'm actually going to change my clothes real quick because it's junky. Okay, so this is kind of a neat trick, I think, anyway. Hopefully it'll work the way I want. This is that grippy tape that you use for your stairs that you can get at Home Depot. And what I did was I looked up online like some of the bigger cities. So yeah, again, for this is taking place like in essentially like a big city in Asia that has those big, nice, wide roads that are always often depicted in the anime as having these big, wide roads so they can actually fit the robots into the scene. So I just calculated essentially in 1/72nd scale what the road width would be, and then I cut that tape down to the size of the road that I wanted, and then I had, so I went to a 2-lane road, okay, and then I had built in a little strip right here that would be like a paint guide if I want to do a yellow line or to, you know, enhance that detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this. Now this also probably is slightly out of scale for what an actual road texture would be in that size, but again, it's fantasy, and sometimes it's better to have a little extra detail than not enough detail, meaning looking kind of boring. And plus, I know that I'm going to get this released up with some Vaseline, so I'm going to lose some of the cracks on this, hopefully not too much, meaning the detail. Again, I'm not, you know, this is like a city under siege. So if there's a couple things that don't make a good impression or it pulls up, it's really just going to be.
What's the Vaseline for?
This is so that it doesn't stick to the material. Yeah, because if you put this down straight, they're going to grip together, and it's going to just pull the whole thing up. If I do this right, I can put water on this, Vaseline on this, it'll take the impression of the surface texture, and it won't lift anything. And if it does lift anything,
so you can use this like a stamp.
yeah, I'm going to use this like a texture stamp, and then when I'm done with this one, I'm going to show you that I have another texture stamp that's from a crater in my shop. So basically, yeah, where we're going next with this is this is for the ground, okay? So this is the street, this is the ground. This is literally just a really neat looking hole in my floor that you don't have to, you know, like, every time, I have a bunch of these at home, because every time I have a little bit of, you know, silicone left from a project, I just pour it in the hole, and I get a texture stamp, you know, so, again, that's a smooth-on product, that's the smooth-on Mold Max 320, Mold Max 30. You don't need anything that elaborate. If you want to make yourself a couple texture stamps, you can get the trial sizes. You don't need to buy a gallon or 5 gallons of it. For $20, you can probably, which is what the trial sizes usually go for, probably make yourself a half dozen different texture stamps. Walk around your neighborhood, find some cool potholes, ask your neighbors if they have some cool potholes, if you can fill it. That sounds horrible. All right, so I'm going to put some water on this, approximately where I'm thinking I want this road, so that we have as much try to make sure we're going to get the least chance of anything grabbing. We'll see if we have any detail loss from that. Putting too much water on it, if we do, we'll just try to restamp it. So you can see, I just put it on a nice board. Let's see how this works. this doesn't work, I'll just switch to the other texture camp and just eliminate the road idea. There's other ways to do roads. Yeah, I'm not going to get too much water on it. Anyway, if we had more time to play with this, we could probably get this to work. Try one more time with a little bit less water. The other way to do roads, I think, in using this material would be to get the, you either probably take this tape and actually just embed it in there. If I put so much Vaseline on there, I would actually try that but now we're going to be able to paint this. You could probably just lay that in there and look like a road. Or you could, I think some of the, some like the railroad companies or the scenery companies, they sell road boarding, essentially the same thing. You can just get this laid out and then lay yourself in a little road, and it'll just stick there forever. Once this stuff is dry, that's it. Yeah, see, the fine line between yeah, the fine line between sticking and having too much water is just too much for this right now for this memory. So I won't have the same problem. This is rubber, so this is not going to give me the same problem. And I've done this one a lot more than I've tried that one. So it's kind of an experiment for today, but we'll just switch this to. This is the backyard of the building. No roads.
Good. It's easy stuff.
Yep. Again, when you have like an hour, that I would probably spend, I could probably spend 45 minutes and figure out a way to make that texture stamp work, but we don't have that amount of time. So, now that's the idea that I was going for. I was trying to get that to do this, but again, now I learned something new. If I want to do that, I'd probably just lay the tape over it because there's probably no reason you couldn't.
We're all making a negative rubber.
Yeah. I mean, this is experimentation. But you can see, now you got this, right? And it's okay, I have backup plans for this stuff. So this texture stamp, I don't know how well you guys can see it, but you can see, like, I mean, that is starting to get some depth of detail, okay? And again, if you guys want to walk up and see this at any point, or walk up later, the idea with any of this stuff, in my opinion, is to really, the more depth you have, when you get around to painting this stuff, you're going to fill this in, paint the earth, paint whatever color it is that you want. Whether it's a city, like Cityscape, with like some dark gray, charcoal-y type stuff, or if it's earth or green, whatever. When you get to the part where you're doing your oil washes and your stuff over all this stuff, all that detail is going to fill in. You're going to start to see shadows. You're going to start to see all this terrific detail, right? And this is just the first layer. For anybody who was in my the rust thing yesterday, I'm all about layers. So the more layers you have, the better sense of the scale you're going to have, a better sense of genuineness and realness you're going to have. And as you can see, we're just getting started. Okay? All right. So since this stuff is setting up, I'll show you why I brought my hammer. Okay. This stuff is called wet clay. This is wet clay, very dried out. Okay. I use a ton of stuff with this for mold making and casting. So I have a ton of it left over. This is something I didn't get to use, and I let it dry all the way out for the show so that I can do it. When this stuff is all dried out, it becomes a great way to make your own rocks and dust and rubble. Now again, cost-wise, you can get 50 pounds of this stuff on Amazon for about 45 bucks shipped. But if you're not doing mold making and casting, you're using it for anything, you will have diorama rubble for the rest of your life for $42. So again, I know you can go buy a small bag of rubble, you know, from these scenery places for $10, or for $40 you can get around to having more than you probably will ever need. That's always the decision that you guys need to make. Okay, so here we go. Do you guys see that? Let me move this out of the way. Yeah, this is like, this knife is it used to be my kitchen knife, right? And then it became my everything knife. This is actually like when I do mold making casting, I like scrape off my table, anything stuck to it. All right, so. Can you guys see that? When you break into this stuff, it gives just a great rock-like texture, right? It's got all those styrations. It's all dried out. Yeah. Here, actually, if you want to start passing that around, I'll chip off another piece. So just look at the part that I just broke off. Don't look at the outside that's already dry. Okay, but as you start to do this, it's going to be all, you know, random stuff. Okay. So as you start to see, like, you know, I go, okay, it's a pretty cool looking piece, right? Maybe there's a rock right there. You know? And I can spend all day playing around with this stuff and I won't. But as you see, as you start to break this stuff up, you know, you're going to get some really neat stuff. And it's so cheap overall that you can spend, you know, spend some time playing around with it, get some neat stuff. I'm only going to do 1 or 2 of the rocks, so I don't need to spend all day doing that. But like, this is a really neat looking piece as we're getting there. Right, every time you get an angle, every time you break it off, you can see all that detail, all the. You guys see that? Right? That's something that I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you would get some of that for just normal. I mean, they don't sell. I haven't seen really anything in the scenery business, meaning, you know, the commercial kind of railroad scenery business stuff.
Woodland scenics.
What's that?
Woodland scenics.
Yeah, like the woodland scenics. I don't see anything. They sell them molds that you can make your own plaster stuff out of, but you know, that's kind of a pain in the butt. So as you can see, you know, you can spend all day playing around with this stuff.
Go to a quarry and they'll bag a bunch of rocks, $20.
Yeah, but this allows you to kind of start to play around and it's a lot cheaper in the long run. So you made some of yourself some big rocks out of that.
Right.
Okay. Now, when you get kind of your scraps, stuff that's doesn't look that great. I almost put that in there. Some stuff you're not happy with, scraps, whatever. Put them in a plastic bag. Now it's hammer time. Oh, wait, no days. Start to make some of your ground cover. And again, this is that layering idea where you're getting increasingly fine detail moving up from the ground, right? And again, it all depends on kind of what your imagination is telling you for that day, what you're looking for. But what I've got here now is a bag full of some that's really dusty. It's all broken up. You can't tell that it was smooth at any point. I got some real fine dust, and I've got some medium rock. So again, this is, you know, my imagination. What I'm thinking of is some aliens are landing, they're breaking everything up, and they're destroying everything. There's going to start to be some rubble there, right? So now you've got this texture layer and your texture stamping, and now you got some bigger rubble, you got some finer rubble.
Can you move that where the camera is?
What's that?
Can you move that where the camera is?
Oh yeah, sorry. How are we doing on time?
About 20 minutes.
What's that?
About another half hour.
Another half hour?
Is it good for everyone?
Yes.
So yeah, so you can see, I mean, this is definitely some serious, like, damage from land, right? So, one of the next little things I'm going to do, especially if you have a model that's a little topsy-turvy, you want to get it secured in. What you can do is take a little piece of cellophane, and I'm going to take the toes of this Macross thing and press it in as it landed. But it's also going to give you a nice simulation of, like, yeah, this thing's got some weight when it landed, right? Of course, because this is a finished model, you know, I'm trying to be careful and make sure I don't get any of the garbage on the model, right? Is that? Scratch it. So now you can see, you know, again, because I made connections. So I'm cheating a little bit here. Yeah, so I made this. Yeah, I made this because this 1/72 scale IMA kit from the 80s is more like 1/100, and I want 1/72 scale, so I scratch built it and made a mold of it and everything. So I'm cheating a little bit. You could have done this before the kit was done, but again, you're just texture stamping, and now you can get like the detail that's on the bottom.
I guess you can make footsteps.
What's that?
You can make like footsteps.
Yeah, you could also do like, yeah, like it had, or maybe one of its, you know, brothers had kind of been in front of him, right? Like, so he's landed here, but a couple of his buddies went that way, and it just looks kind of interesting, right? And again, if you had an unfinished kit, you would do this kind of before you got to this point, but I'm cheating, so. All right, so now we got some nice rubble. We got texture stamping going on. We got some rocks. Now, I'm actually going to take a minute for a few more rocks on there, because once this stuff is set, I don't want to keep this for myself. Once it's set, I won't be able to get any more detail in there.
We're leaving tomorrow, not today.
You know, I'll leave it to that. I think this will be, I could probably transport this in about an hour and a half. Yeah, this stuff's going to set up fairly quickly.
Days have to wait forever.
Oh yeah, no, Abe's would be here till.
That's a good 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah. This will tack up quick enough. Does anybody have any other questions while I'm doing this little detailing?
How do you tackle all the individual painting economics?
Slowly. Yeah, I mean, so I'll, you know, what I'll probably wind up doing, as you see right now too, I'm adding really fine dust, so now you've got 3 or 4 layers coming up. In this case, I'll probably, did you see the sand color that's in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, that's kind of a desert scene, so you get a little bit more leeway where they're all kind of the same hues. What I probably will do is get primer on it. This stuff handles primer fine, just regular Walmart primer, you don't need anything special, okay? And then I will paint it with Tamiya acrylics. Again, you know, like a nice earth tone or whatever I wind up deciding to do. And then I will probably switch to, like when I get to this big rock, I'll probably switch to like oil paint and do a couple layers, and then I'll seal it, and then I'll do an oil wash. So what you're going to get is, because this will be Tamiya down here, can you see that where my finger is? Yeah. So since it'll be Tamiya down here, and it'll be an oil above it, if I overshoot it with oil, I'll Q-tip it so that you're smoothing that transition. So if you have like a gray rock on a brown earth, right? But then when you go in and you do a little bit of a, you know, so you have a gray rock, you do maybe like a dark Payne's gray wash. And that will catch all the little ridges and all the little nooks and crannies in here. So you have kind of a light gray just like you would see in nature, like if you're walking around, you know, on a trail or something, I'm always looking around to observe these things. So you do that, and then maybe you go in and you do a couple little like blue streaks or something that would be in a natural gray rock. So it'll evolve over time. You know, but again, I'm just trying to get all the dust and everything in there so that it's in there. Now, and then on top of this, you can add like the AK interactive dusts and stuff, right? So that you get powdered dust on top of all this. So this is all, you know, there's some fine dust in there. There's some small rubble, medium rubble, big rocks, right? It's all adding to that detailing, to that layer, right? So,
Do you find you have to shoot any glue or anything down, or just that stuff?
with the AK interactive stuff, which I'm probably not going to get to today because it won't dry. Again, this is one of those things that like we're talking to Rob, you know, about like what to do next year for my academy class. So like if anybody decides that they want to go to an academy class and do an all-day thing and make your own, one of the ideas in the pitching to Rob is everybody brings in their own model. We do this stuff, but do top to finish. You know, get it done, paint it, the whole thing. If we got that far today, what I would do is use Mod Podge, thin like 50-50 I think, and I spray bottle it, and then I dust it, and that's a matte finish glue. And when you thin it down that far, it just becomes like a flat finish. And that takes like overnight to really set up, so that would probably be the last thing that we do for like an academy class. But when you do that, it gives it a nice flat sheen, and then you get the dust to stick on top of it, and it's wonderful. And again, now you're getting into the part where you have the texture stamping, and then all the different layers of the rocks and stuff, and then you put that fine powdered dust on it, and really you're 5-6 layers deep into detailing on this thing, and they look fantastic when they're done, you know. In my opinion. So there you go. So right there. Now, if you wanted to add like a backdrop to it, again for the purposes of the class and time limits. How much time do we have again now? What are we down to?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So this can be, a rock wall. You can do whatever you want. I'm just going to figure something out. This is real similar to the balsa foam. I know he said a little bit. Maybe he brought in some of this to sign foam. Do you guys want to pass around some of the samples of this stuff? Yeah. So this is called Precision Board 15. They sell all sorts of different densities of this. They go 50, 30, 10, whatever. The higher the number, like if it's 40, it's much more dense. If it's 10, it's much softer.
Those make compression better.
Yeah.
Less dense.
Yeah. So you can call them and get a sample. Did you get a sample? Free sample, or did
No, I just went to a complete sculptor and I just looked at what they had.
Okay.
I said, okay, this works.
Yep. So actually, I just found out that Smooth On is supposed to be starting to carry this stuff. The Smooth On guy's there. So, because the problem with me getting this stuff for the last few years, I use this for model making. It's not just for doing the scenery and stuff. I mean, you took the scratchbook class, like
Yeah, right.
I built entire spaceships out of this stuff. So, Precision Board Plus. Yep. So
there's other different brands too.
yeah, and there's also The reason I like Precision Board Plus is it's like certified non-toxic, and there's plenty of toxic stuff in my life. Anywhere I can get a non-toxic thing, I'm going to try. So it's carvable. I'm gonna kind of hack away at this with that knife as a kind of a machete thing to start getting some interesting shapes on it. Like I said, Smooth On. If you want to talk to them about it, hopefully, I've had to buy these in 4x8 sheets because you can only get them from like an authorized supplier. Hopefully, and if you guys go talk to the Smooth On guys, tell them to encourage them to sell model maker size, boards of it, like maybe a 2x2 sheet, and so you can try it and not have to commit to $400.
Is it expensive?
I mean, a 4x8 sheet at 2 inches is $400, but even though I use a lot of it, I just bought another sheet of it. I just bought 10 years worth of it. So
What thing is
$40 a year for, and I do a lot of stuff. So
What the thickness you usually get?
inch and a half or 2.
I got 2 inches.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with this, but as you can see here, this will be a nice little backdrop to it when it gets around. So again, I'm going with kind of the aliens have landed and they're invading and the missiles are flying everywhere. As you can see, again, you guys can see that? Sorry. As you're breaking into this thing, you're exposing all these open pores, right? All the spots where the air is. It's going to make it look like it's a cement building. That was the idea for me was, always in these anime, you seem to have these big concrete buildings, right? Or a concrete wall.
What are you gluing it together with?
In this, I laminated these 3 sheets with 2-part epoxy, laid it on a table saw, let it set, so it was pretty, flat. Usually, I would do a 3-minute resin. I just didn't have any on me the other day when I was trying to set this up.
But the acrylic glue works pretty well with both sides of it.
Yeah.
It works really well.
So, again, now you're just getting into kind of like what your creativity wants to do.
So it's a lot softer when you hit it first, right?
What's that?
Before you coat it, it's a lot softer.
The precision of the board? Yeah. Eventually you'll wind up using, I usually hit this when I get to the point where I'm done, which won't be today. I hit it with, like the Kilts primer from Home Depot, and how smooth I want it. I'll seal it with that, and then I'll spray it with a non-fill, like like the auto primers come with a heavy fill, or some of them come with like essentially super fine. Like Walmart sells a super fine primer that I've been using for years. That has, it's almost the same as Tamiya Fine, but a bottle of it, like normal spray can, is like $1.50, and you get what would be to me if it was Tamiya, it would be $30 worth of Tamiya.
Yeah, I think Duplicolor sounds like it's great to
Yeah.
That's what I use. I think that's the way it's-
Yeah, if I don't have to spend money on primer, like, I don't want to. You know what I mean? So, that's what I would usually want to use. So again, this is something that you can spend, as much of your imagination, as much of your time as you want. In my opinion, when you get this, we're getting there anyway. It's also good for etching into.
Save those pieces too.
What's that?
Save those pieces too. You might find
Yeah,
some
I save all these little scraps and stuff. They wind up with different crazy ideas that I have. Okay, I'm gonna try to move this
It sells a precision board in thinner than 2 inches.
up to ½ inch,
Oh, yeah.
as low as ½ inch. Yeah. So again, I would encourage those guys. Anybody who's talked to them guys, encourage them and say, look, can we get some hobbyist packs of this precision board? Because they said they're going to carry. I talked to them yesterday, and then I talked to them this morning. I told them what we were doing. They didn't give me any free samples. They're nice guys, but no free samples. I don't know. They might give it to you guys. Maybe they just know that I already have a bunch of those. Okay, so again, we're doing this kind of quick and dirty. We in frame there? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for doing this. No problem. So now, again, I'm just trying to figure out what a corrugation would look like on, this is just a drill, like a wood drill, and it's just got a neat little, it becomes a neat little etching tool. So this stuff will take, and this is where I walked in with the guy doing it yesterday, so this might be a little repetitive, but if you can go through this pretty quick. If you have a ruler and they're all evenly spaced. And if I was being a little bit, because of where this is, I will eventually go in and actually use, this stuff goes really well with drywall compound. So eventually when I get home, these seam lines that are from where I joined them, I will fill with drywall compound and smooth it over to make it look much more, like an actual building. And I might hit this with a layer of drywall compound and use like an acid brush, it was here yesterday, and you poke it, I use like one of these kind of gnarly, dried out acid brushes, and you put like a real thin layer of drywall compound on it, and you can hit it, and it'll, again, now it's going to give you another layer of texture. How are we doing on time?
Yeah, about 12 minutes.
12 minutes. So again, this is all just the preliminary stuff, and to give you guys an idea of what the material is and what it's capable of. I'm doing this fast. But so far, the scale looks pretty right. I'll go back in and, deepen these lines that I'm making now and square them off a little bit when I finish it. This is just to get those grooves going. And you can see, this stuff moves pretty quick. And I like these. I like doing these with these nice deep V grooves. My imagination is, of course, like this is where I guess the mortar between the concrete blocks would be. And all the anime, it's all nice. A lot of times it's like modern cities from the 70s. Where big concrete construction. When you get to all these edges and stuff, you could even go get some like soldering wire and make some like rebar popping out or something. And
You said you already coated that with epoxy?
no, this is not coated at all. This is just laminated. The 3 sheets that I used to get this height were laminated with, they're glued together with epoxy. And then, it's always nice if you find something that's a uniform shape that you can use over and over again. Make it go real quick. Instead of trying to measure, 2 inches this way, 2 inches that way, put a line, get your square. If you find something that you can use, and if you do mess up, you can always just put a nice big gouge in there. We'll get to that eventually. We might not get it today, but. And then when I turn this sideways, right, just like any bricks or any concrete things, it's going to be staggered. It's never going to be, one block on top of another. So you just think about those things, and I just flip it, and I got my template to go back over it again. So you guys can start to see the idea here. This is just, like I said, that big kind of modern, large block, concrete construction that I'm thinking of in my imagination. I won't bore you and make you watch me do this all the way up. But can you guys see that? Yeah. So if I continue that all the way up, and maybe I'd knock some parts off of this side and make it look a little bit more beat up. You could make a nice shelf display. Like I said, you can go in and use any of these anything that you can find. It's kind of a crazy tool to make some impact craters on there. You can cut some windows out. You could start to add stuff in. And once you paint this, add all your little extra details. Again, you can get in there and really let your imagination take you where you're going. You could add texture with tools or with adding the drywall, like I said, and have at it. So, again, I went over a little bit of what you do to paint this next, but that's the demo. I might be done a few minutes early unless you guys have any questions about it.
Another incredible hour. What you've done in an hour.
Yeah, again, I would spend a little bit more time on all this stuff and a little bit more care, but it's the quick one. Does anybody have any questions? Or? Anybody want to come by and look at it? Feel free. I'm gonna drink some coffee. Yep. Yep, it's two-part, freeform air. You know, staining, you do impact craters, you do whatever you want, you know. Except if I had more time, you know, you could really spend some time playing around with it. But that'll start packing up in about an hour, and it'll be transportable home. I don't have to stay here till 8 o'clock tonight or anything. It'll make the trip home.
Love it.
And, yeah.
Drive or fly?
What's that?
You drive or you fly?
Drive live in Connecticut, so.
Oh, okay. So
It's weird, it's got a texture like cellular clay almost.
Yeah.
But it dries a million times faster.